ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does the stars sprinkle then not yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, everybody, we are here, and give me 2 seconds because I am with George Bezama, and this is Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, here with you on No Soundbites Allowed. Always happy to be here with you. We are live. And, ow, you're leaning into it. Little feedback from the headphones there. And our guest is George Bezama. And he's been on the show before. He's a great person. He ran for an elected office. He's involved with the community. But rather than me tell you about that, George, talk about yourself.
I'm George Bezama. I'm a lifelong New Yorker. I lived here for several years now. I've been a student at the BU campus. I've tried to run my own startup. I'm on several boards locally here in the county. I try to keep busy. I love learning new things. I love learning new skills.
George, you are so nervous right now. I can hear it in your voice. You're so nervous.
Well, I'm just going by the book.
You're running right down the list, and
Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
like, oh, nervous. I can hear it in your voice. Don't worry. You'll make it through this. You've done this before.
A little bit of nervousness is always a good thing, right?
Well, it never hurts until you get doing this over and over again like I usually do. But I want a lot of people to know, we've had, and George is, while he's involved in politics, he's also a regular person. And we love to have real people having real conversations on the show, especially when there's big issues on the horizon. And so we're going to be doing that today. We're going to talk about some of the big issues that are on the horizon. As you may have noticed from the title, we're talking about gun control. We're talking about the brand new Hate Crime Domestic Terrorism Act by Governor Cuomo, which I need to say right off the bat, shame on Governor Cuomo. Shame, Game of Thrones shame on Governor Cuomo because of his stupid Hate Crimes Domestic Terrorism Act. It is a horrible bill, and I will explain why I think that. You may disagree with me, George, or you may agree. And of course, anyone who's watching this, anyone who has an opinion about it, we're looking forward to hearing from you. Go to our YouTube page, and you can make a live comment there, or you can send us a text at the 607-242-9247. Let me say it again, 607-242-9247. You can't tell me you didn't hear that clearly because I say it like a computer. And you can just send in a text, and we'll be happy to hear your comments about this as we move along. So I'm going to jump right on into it now. George, let me start off with, where do you think you stand on the idea of gun control?
In general, I'm against it. I think we should have as much liberty as the Second Amendment allows citizens to have. Most efforts seem to either not work or they end in failure. But let's get to the specifics first, and then.
Okay. Well, I think a lot of people have a similar kind of view that no one's necessarily against well, I think the average person in America is willing to say that they believe the right of the Second Amendment, that you have a right to a firearm, and there are certain conditions people are concerned about, which would be people who are deranged, people who are criminal, people who are violent. These are exceptions to that Second Amendment right that I think most people will be reasonable about and say, okay, maybe not them. I think most people would be reasonable to say, if you're a violent felon, a criminal that's been convicted, you don't necessarily have the same entitlement to a firearm as, a church-going older lady, as an example.
In that case, we could say it's more of a privilege.
It's not a privilege. It's a right.
It's a right.
It is a right. I didn't say that I believe that. I'm saying that that's what most people would say as a compromise. I don't necessarily...
Playing devil's advocate here.
No, that's fine, but that's not a privilege.
It's a right with certain parameters?
It's a right with restrictions. In the same way that the First Amendment, we've agreed, has certain restrictions. Where you can't say falsely... People misquote this all the time. Oh, you can't say fire in a crowded movie theater. Sure you can, if it's true. If it's false, then no, and you are liable for that. That is a crime. That is a falsehood. You have the right to free speech when you are not knowingly falsely informing the public or inciting violence. That's what the Supreme Court has decided for decades now. In the same way, so we have a restriction, and that's about the only restriction I believe in, on the First Amendment. We can have restrictions on our rights that we all agree on for the benefit of the society as a whole. That's what I believe. So can we make a compromise on the Second Amendment that violent felons, that the deranged, that individuals who are actively seeking to cause violence, kind of like the incite violence clause, would we say that they are individuals that shouldn't have a firearm?
Which falls under the deranged category.
Which again, yes, but
more or less.
More or less. But I'm trying to be as fair as I can be on this, that's okay. We can accept that. I think that's a compromise everyone can make. The problem I keep saying is we keep getting more and more laws that totally ignore all of that. They go all over the place. And they have nothing to do with individuals who are posing an actual threat. They're going after people who aren't the threat. And I'll give you, tell me if you think I'm wrong. Tell me if you disagree with this. But we've heard, do you know how many laws there are in the United States, local, state, and federal combined, on gun control?
I would say probably likely several hundred.
Keep going higher.
Several thousand.
Keep going higher.
It's a surprise even for me. 10 to 20,000.
Actually, there's...
Combining all of them.
Roughly, the estimate is 22,000 state, federal, and local laws all dealing on gun control.
Wow. That is...
On average... On average,
I bet a lot of people don't know that.
No, most people don't, because everyone makes it sound like there's no law about this. We need gun control because there's just no law. It's the wild, wild west. That's the furthest from the truth. In every single community across the country, from a small village to the big cities, on average, you're going to see about 100 different laws that affect gun control. Whether it's about getting a license and permits, whether it's about the registrations, background checks, types of firearms, types of ammunition, amount of ammunition, it goes through the entire gambit. And people don't realize that. They don't think about that because that's not what's in the news. They make it sound like there's only like 3 laws on gun control. I mean, am I wrong? Doesn't it always sound like that?
No, absolutely. When you turn on NBC, ABC, whatever, CNN, it sounds like we need more laws. There's nothing on the books right now that's taking care of what is going on that addresses all these issues right now.
There's no law to take care of me because some crazy person's going to shoot up my school, my house, my wherever gun-free zone that you may happen to be in. And that is a lie. That is a point-blank lie, I believe. And I can show proof of that. I've done the documentation for decades. And that's why it's very aggravating to me. And I'm very passionate about this because people are being lied to. It's like, here's the thing. Tell me, and I'm going to get into the Governor Cuomo because he's looking to get this. He's trying to pass it in New York State, and he's going to be trying to pass the same idea in Congress. So this is not, while today it's something that's affecting New York State, they're trying to get it to be able to affect every single person in America. So if you are watching this and you are in America, it's going to affect you too, because they're trying to make this a national issue. So let me start with, we have laws against murder, right?
Absolutely.
We have hate crimes.
Yes.
Okay. What's the difference if we're talking about murder? Some crazy nut job, evil person kills a nun. Okay? They've committed murder, right?
Yes.
Does it matter if it was a hate crime? What's the difference?
Doesn't seem so. It's murder. It's right there. It's murder.
Right.
Plain and simple.
They murdered someone. It doesn't matter if it's hateful. They murdered someone. And the penalty should be, I would prefer the death penalty or life imprisonment. You know, that's generally 25
one
to
of
life.
Those two, yes.
Right. Okay. So why do we have hate crimes? I'll make it simpler. You have a car, you hit somebody with a baseball bat. Okay? What is that crime?
It's assault.
That's all right.
With a weapon.
Assault with a weapon, which in New York State would be a deadly weapon, which would also let them take away your firearms. But besides that point, so it's assault with a deadly weapon.
Yes.
Okay, because the intent was to hurt someone.
Correct.
Okay. So does it matter if you don't like, if that person that was hit, does it matter if they were gay, straight, transgender, white, black, Asian, Hispanic? Does they have whatever religious preference? Does it make any difference whatsoever?
No.
Because they got hit with a baseball bat.
Correct.
But we have hate crimes.
Incident occurred as it yes.
Yes, but we have a hate crime. Why?
It's a good question.
See, and that's, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. That's a very good question. So why is it to add something to the crime? Is it to make it seem worse than some
Bingo.
other crime?
Make
Maybe.
it seem worse. I am a politician and I am doing something. We're passing hate crimes because there's nothing to handle that crime because this person did that out of hate. Well, actually, there is something to handle that. It's called the underlying crime, which would be assault or murder or attempted murder or stealing or whatever it may be. That's the crime. Hate is just, saying it's a hate crime is just a wonderful way to get votes and political spin because I'm doing something. Look, it's a hate crime. It makes no difference whatsoever. No one who's going to go out, I believe, and tell me if you think I'm wrong. No one's going to go out there and say, "Oh, I was going to rob that bank, but the bank is a black-owned, white-owned, whatever. It's an Asian bank. I'm not going to do that because it's a hate crime." No one's going to say, "I was going to beat that person up, but that's a hate crime, so I'm not going to do that."
I don't think it's going to deter a single person out there.
Has anyone ever in life ever gone, "Oh my goodness, that's a hate crime. I can't do that"? No. I don't think anyone, if we are being honest and reasonable, I don't think there's a human being, or American, who can say anyone has ever stopped from doing something because it's a hate crime. They may stop doing something because it's a crime, period, full stop. But no one's stopping because, "Oh, that's a hate crime. I can't do that. Someone might think I'm a hateful person." I mean, that's the stupidity that politicians are selling to us. And if someone out there disagrees and can tell me where is the difference between a hate crime and a regular crime and why a hate crime, and please remember, you can't be charged with a hate crime without actually committing a crime. So what's the point? I mean, does that make sense? Is my logic flawed here?
Personally, to me, absolutely makes sense. Maybe someone thinks it doesn't make sense. I mean,
Well, I can't imagine what it is they could say that makes.
you are being charged for the actual crime, so this is merely a salad dressing of sorts.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's icing on the cake. It's like, ooh, let's throw that on there too, because you're going to get convicted of the crime for them to then put hate crime on it. And I'm not a lawyer, but I've looked at enough bills and read enough trials. Hate crimes aren't a crime by themselves. You don't get convicted of that. You're convicted of the actual crime. Now, this is important to understand because Governor Cuomo came out with the Hate Crime Domestic Terrorist Act. This is his proposal. I know you hadn't heard about it. It just came out. But I know you were going to look at it before you came onto the show. George, tell me your thoughts on it.
The way, as I said, I briefly looked over. He has it's out on his official website, and he's trying to say all of a sudden, if a crime is committed where, first of all, there are people murdered, so we already have the crime being committed. It's murder right there, more than 4 people, and I believe, I may be wrong. He says because of, is it because because they hate them or because they harbor some kind of dislike? I'm not even sure how they prove that the person has this. How do they prove, I don't know. It's not like proving intent. I mean...
Well, to tell you what he said exactly, and
Absolutely.
and I was just showing it on the screen a moment ago, and it's Governor Cuomo advancing the first in the nation domestic terrorism law to include mass violence motivated by hate. You can look it up yourself. It's from the state of New York. In other words, it's propaganda. And in his propaganda piece, he goes to speak about the hate-fueled murder and the intent to cause mass casualties as an act of domestic terrorism. Okay, so, and he wants to fight against, or he wants to see enacted, a federal domestic terrorism law, including banning weapons used to perpetrate these crimes, military-style assault weapons, and high-capacity magazines, and enacting universal background checks. And he quotes him, white supremacists, anti-Semites, anti-LGBTQ, white nationalists, which is a very specific set of people. These are Americans committing mass hate crimes, which is untrue, in that they're not limited to that group. Hate crimes against other Americans, and it should be recognized for what it is, domestic terrorism. It's not just repulsive, immoral, and anti-American. It is illegal, and we must confront it by enacting a new law to fit the crime. That is directly from Governor Cuomo's office. This is official documentation from the state of New York. So in other words, someone is either has or attempted to kill multiple people, which is murder. And he wants to say, well, because they're doing that, we need to make a law that says domestic terrorism, and we have to make it a hate crime so that we can charge them for that.
So I'm going to make a couple comments to that.
Sure, please
First,
do.
he says, we're making it it's now classified as terrorism. Terrorism, by definition, is violence for political means.
Yes.
So, but there's nothing in the law that says, was the guy doing it to...
Oh, there is no law. That's a big
right,
problem right there, but I'll get into that. Go ahead.
But terrorism, the textbook definition is violence committed to achieve a political goal, usually on civilians, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, is there any way to establish that the perpetrator was doing this for political goal, to achieve some kind of political outcome, versus just because they hate people or whatever, First and second of all, we're going to go back. He's once again trying to push, to ban so-called assault weapons and everything. So he's once again pushing the same agenda that he's been doing for years.
Well, according to New York State itself, he says in there that under this proposal, I'm quoting the article, Under this proposal, mass shootings against a group of people based on their actual or perceived race, color, national origin, ancestry, gender identity, or expression, religion, religious practice, age, disability, or sexual orientation would be punishable up to life in prison without parole. That's how he's defining terrorism. Okay? And he goes on to say this change would effectively treat these acts as they should, as terrorist crimes, carrying the same penalty as other terrorist crimes. So he is now changing the definition of terrorism to social justice politics.
Pretty much. I mean, he's defining it according to what his agenda. As we said, the textbook definition is a little different.
It's very different, and the reality around the world is very different, but he's changing it. And here's what I'm getting upset about. First of all, none of that is actually a proposal. It doesn't tell me what we should treat them the same as we should treat terrorists. What does that mean? What law is he referring to? What laws are applicable in this case? He's talking about people's enacting this law against people based on social gender identity politics. And okay, so you want to use that, but what's the criteria here? So if someone punches someone, okay, you're at a nightclub, and I'm going to use this example. I hit you, George. Okay, so I, a black Puerto Rican, hit you in a nightclub. You claim that was racial. Okay, because you didn't like a post I put out on Facebook or Twitter or a video that I did here on YouTube, and you say, well, that's racist, and or you claim, like some people have claimed on Facebook, I love it when I get this, that I am a white nationalist, okay? Because of the things I believe in, because I'm a black Republican, I am automatically a white nationalist, they will say. And so they're going to use that because I hit you, and they're claiming I'm a white nationalist. Now, that would fall under Governor Cuomo's domestic terrorism if I did it in a nightclub, because there are other people there, so they were threatened, and they had their feelings hurt, and they were fearful and in terror of the fight that we were having. So therefore, it is a terrorist act, and I should get the same treatment as Osama bin Laden. That's what Governor Cuomo has just said. Yeah. Is my logic flawed in that description?
It makes sense. I mean, we're just following the points. It's a little unnerving, honestly.
Isn't that absolutely unnerving, that because of someone's impression, their feeling about how I am, my social media commentary, my political commentary, that someone can turn around and in a confrontation then use that to then enact his ill-defined, dangerous redefinition of terrorism and punish me far beyond the limits of the law otherwise. Because you could, if we had a fight and other people were watching it, you could never call it, without this stupid law by Governor Cuomo, you could never call it terrorism, and I would never have, and I could never get charged and treated that way. But under Governor Cuomo's very loose, very stupid description of his proposal, I could suddenly have 25 to life for punching you or you punching me. Either way.
Well, I think he does say something like say that you have to murder more than 4 people for this law to apply to that case?
He hasn't been clear.
So it's not very clear.
He hasn't. I'm reading you what he has said, which isn't dependent on murder.
Mm-hmm. But even if it is, I mean, this law can be twisted in so many ways. Let's say someone gets into a car accident accidentally, right? It's manslaughter charge. But, let's say we have, a Chinese person versus, let's say, people from the Dominican, let's say carload of people from the Dominican Republic. Is a case like that going to be charged under this law now too?
Anything
I
could.
mean, anything could, right? It's very loosely defined.
See, and people throughout America should be very terrified about this. Everyone should be terrified about this, because in making this very emotional plea with no real definitions, the thing that we're getting is this promise that you're going to be safe. And they're not only stripping away your rights, it's like enslaving you. It's actually putting you in a worse position, because they can use this against you in any way they want to. It's the same thing as the red flag laws.
Right.
Oh, I don't like your tweet, and then because I don't like your tweet, I'm going to go to a judge. The judge, afraid to possibly miss something, will allow the police to come in and take every firearm that you own and take away your kids, because the law requires that, and you've never committed a crime. And then you have to try and defend yourself after the fact, which, according to people like Representative Anthony Brindisi, he thinks that's actually called due process. No, due process is I get to defend myself before you punish me for a crime I have never been convicted of, nor is there any underlying crime. And Cuomo is doing the same exact thing here. Anything can turn into domestic terrorism because of the stupid definition he has here, and the fact that he's counting on people being emotional, I believe. But you were going to say something else.
I would agree. I lost my train of thought on that set, but yeah, absolutely. They'll go charge you after the fact, based on what people's emotions are. Do they'll feel threatened? Mm-hmm. They may not be actually threatened, but same principle.
We feel. Yeah. Oh, I feel like I'm in danger. I feel. You know what?
He looks dangerous. I mean, he's wearing camo, and I know he has a lot of hunting rifles. So
yeah, it's like the kid in Missouri who went to the Walmart. Missouri is a open carry state. He had a rifle with him. Doesn't matter what kind of rifle, because there are no assault rifles. They exist in the military. No civilian has them because it's illegal, and a semi-automatic rifle is not an assault weapon. Please, people, learn the dictionary, learn something about guns. If you're calling a rifle an assault weapon, you have no idea what you're talking about. That's just by definition. That's just factual. But anyway, he walked into Missouri, into a Walmart with his rifle, did not brandish it against anyone, walked around with shopping and videotaping, didn't harm anyone. Mind you, I think this is stupid, but he did that, and then was confronted by a good guy with a gun, a fireman, who held him until the police came. That's actually completely legal. But everyone was freaking out because they were terrified of someone who was not presenting a threat.
Right. I mean, it's a little silly, and I think it's a lot more, say, if you want to do it, you can go, of course, with a concealed carry.
Not according to Cuomo. It's almost impossible in New York State to get concealed carry, and the Democrats don't want you to have it.
I was referring to the case in Missouri. People, it is an open carry state. Yes. But if you can conceal carry, I certainly think that would be preferable if everyone just does that and continues about their business. I don't know if he wasn't wearing anything over his head just to play devil's advocate or anything.
No, he was wearing body armor.
He was wearing body armor.
Yeah.
Visible, non-visible.
Very visible.
Very visible.
He changed in a parking lot, got everything set up, and walked in. He was middle of the day.
But there's nothing illegal about that in Missouri.
No, nothing illegal. If I want to put on, now several states want to make it illegal to have body armor, but realistically, if I wanted to put on body armor right now and walk around New York State, there's nothing illegal about that.
Nothing illegal.
But they're in several states, they want to make it illegal. See, and this is a whole mindset here, and I want people to understand, this is the mindset that they are trying to pass. They're not really trying to pass a law, because if you were going to be made safer, and I want to read a quote on how much safer you're supposed to be. Remember, we had red flag laws. We have over 22,000 laws. we see that Governor Cuomo is now trying to pass the Hate Crime Domestic Terrorism Act. Just a year ago, Governor Cuomo was trying to pass the red flag legislation, which I oppose. He did pass it because of the single party system in New York at this time, all Democrats. But when he passed it, this is what he had to say again, this is the New York State Governor's official site. Governor Cuomo kicks off a bus tour to pass red flag protection bill. This is before he passed it. I believe it was last June 2018. And in there he says that, and I want to get back to the quote, parents should not have to fear sending their children to school every day, and teachers should not have to worry if they will return home from work. Together, we can and will pass this common sense gun legislation, and we will continue to fight to ensure gun violence has no place in this great state. Now, let's remember something, folks. Governor Cuomo passed the New York SAFE Act against the will of everyone and has 95% opposition since 2013 to this moment. He passed red flag legislation. He now wants to pass what I'm going to call is the HCDT Act, or the Hate Crime Domestic Terrorist Act. And he's saying the same thing in every single case. We're going to pass this law so you're going to be safe. If the law was actually effective in any way, you don't need, if the SAFE Act was effective to protect people, you wouldn't need red flag laws. If red flag laws were effective in any way, you wouldn't need this new terrorism law. It's just, it defines itself as telling you how ineffective it is. Because you keep saying the same thing. Well, this will make you safe. Well, if that was making me safe, why do we have to have another law that's doing the same thing? It goes back to the hate crime thing. Why do I need another law if we already have a law? We have a law against murder. Why do we need more laws about murder? We already have it. I mean, does that just make sense, or am I just lost here somehow and I'm just not getting it?
Oh, I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, ideally, we want the least amount of laws on the books as possible, but hey, it seems the goal here is to have as many as possible. It's the opposite of the ideal that that we want. As you said, the laws on the books already, they already cover, if an incident goes down, if there's a crime committed. This just makes more and more. It's more and more legislation. It's unneeded legislation, more restrictions.
We're going to have new laws written up. We have to have new procedures for police that they have to be trained on. We have to have new prosecutors or new classes for prosecutors that have to be trained on. By the way, this is all government. This is all taxpayer money. It's your money coming out of your pocket to do all of that. We have to prosecute these cases. We have to throw people in jail potentially for longer than they should be. We have to go to court because this will go to court. The New York SAFE Act went to court. Red flags are going to go to court. We're going to be going into courts, possibly to the Supreme Court on all of this, out of taxpayer money coming out of your pocket to fight this, to defend it, because Governor Cuomo is not going to just let it go. So he's going to defend it with your tax money. And then he's going to go out there and we're doing all this, but it's repetition and it doesn't work. I've actually looked at the GIVE, Gun Involved Violence examination. It's a report for New York State, 17 largest metropolitan areas. Guess what? Violence is up since the New York SAFE Act was enacted. Violence is, and I can tell you, the red flag legislation didn't stop it either. This won't either, because crazy people, criminal people, don't care.
Should be pretty obvious, right? I think the law. That's why.
Apparently not.
Apparently not. That's the unfortunate part.
And I would love to hear a Democrat tell me why I am wrong on what I'm talking about and what I'm understanding here. Because it's one thing to say, well, gee, Mike, do you want to have crazy people, deranged people, whatever the term is these days, to have a firearm? No. I can agree with that. You know, I'm all for that. But then they're telling me, then we can't, because I don't want deranged people to have a firearm, they're also coming back to me and saying, well, okay, that means you can't have an AR-15. Why can't I have an AR-15? What's that got to do with anything? The two things make no sense whatsoever. Yesterday, people were being convicted for do you remember Islamberg, New York? What happened there?
A little bit. Isn't it I believe some kind of small Islamic community in upstate New York? And
yes,
some guys showed up in a pickup truck and were brandishing weapons. I don't know. No. Okay.
Islamberg, New York is a community, small community of a high concentration of Muslims. In that community, there were 4 kids, all of them under 20, who were building bombs, which is illegal since 1934, the National Firearms Act. Since that law, it's illegal to build a bomb, and you can't get a license to build a bomb. And these 4 kids, who are all Boy Scouts, went out and they were building bombs to blow up Islamberg. They got caught. Not because of red flag legislation, not because of the SAFE Act, just because of laws that are some of the other 20,000 laws that exist. And they were caught and they were convicted. And guess what? If you had a hate crime, it wouldn't matter because they were convicted for, 1, building a bomb, and the intent to use a bomb, which is attempt to commit murder in the 2nd degree. There's 2 causes right there. Why do I need a hate crime? Doesn't matter. Doesn't change the fact that they were making bombs to commit murder, and bombs are illegal. And since you can't get a license for bombs, it doesn't matter what gun may or may not have been in their possession at the time, because they were making bombs. And yet, I keep hearing people like Governor Cuomo, I'm hearing Kamala Harris, I'm hearing Elizabeth Warren, I'm hearing Kirsten Gillibrand. They're all out there saying, don't worry, we're going to make you safe because we're going to pass one more law. And then we'll pass one more law. And then we'll pass one more law because you're going to be safe. Just as long as we have enough laws to cover every aspect of your life and take away your ability to own a firearm. I think that's stupid.
It's not going to work either. I don't know, was it Thomas Jefferson or was it someone else who said those who sacrifice their freedom for security deserve neither?
Yeah, I've heard that quote. I like to point to Bernie Sanders when he goes, America needs to become more like Venezuela, which just killed in the last 2 years 5,000 of its people because 3 years ago they took away the people's guns.
It's insane to be trying to emulate, us on a failed state, really. But the fact is, we already have the laws for crimes that are currently committed, and this is simply adding. They're going to make us safe. More laws alone. That's not going to make us safe at all. Simply putting more laws. You have to think about why is that happening? Why do people go out and do this? Try to resolve the deeper issues that,
What's the underlying issue?
What are the underlying issues here? And maybe you can reduce the number of such incidents that happen. I think that would be the best approach. But simply having more laws like this, the laws are already on the books after the crime happens.
That's what I'm thinking. And by the way, folks, I'm just checking to see if anyone's making comments. Feel free, if you agree, if you disagree, if you think I missed something, or if you have something to add to it, please send us a text, send us a comment on YouTube. We're looking for it, and I'm always happy. I know sometimes people are a little nervous because I suppose I can be a little imposing, I suppose. But don't. I want to hear other people's voices, and especially if you disagree, I want to hear what you have to say. I think, George, would you like it as well?
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to hear some opposing viewpoints here.
Because maybe I can learn something. Maybe there's something that I'm just not getting that would suddenly shine a light of truth to me where someone's subjective truth, and suddenly I'll get it and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Because every way I've analyzed this and all the data that I have looked at for over a decade, I have not found one law that has actually prevented a mass shooting, which have been going on since the 1940s. It was 1946, the first mass shooting recorded in the United States out of New Jersey. No laws have stopped that. It doesn't matter what party you're in, which president it was, which state or county legislators you have. We've seen it happening consistently, about 20 per year, with 100 victims per year for over 40 years. That's just a fact. And no law has changed that. No party has changed that. And I don't care how many laws they make, there seems to be no reason why it's going to stop, because you're not stopping criminals, you're stopping law-abiding people. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to.
Has it been about 20 mass shooting incidents per year with a roughly 100 casualties?
22 have happened this year. On average, it's 20 per year, with on average 100 people every year being injured.
For the last 40 years.
For the last 40 years. Every year for the last 40 years, that is the average. Some years are a little higher, some are a little lower. And of those, approximately 5% or less have been done with rifles. The biggest contributing weapons have been handguns or shotguns.
Interesting. And what has happened before?
By the way,
those 40
if you're
years?
wondering where I get that data from, folks, that comes from the FBI, the CDC, New York State, Illinois, California, and there's a couple of other reports that I've read. If you actually get the data from these organizations, not from people who interpret it, but those organizations, get the FOIA reports out there, and I guarantee you, you will find everything I've said is absolutely correct. Go on.
I'm just curious, what are the numbers before, let's say, before we're talking about 1980 here. So I'm just curious.
It actually goes back to 1970.
It goes back to 1970. So I don't know what was going on, let's say, in the 1950s or 60s, and what if they have the numbers for that. It'll be interesting to find out. But regardless, the laws have just continued to pile on since 1970, and we have the same numbers.
We have the same numbers. With a gun ban, without a gun ban, it doesn't change. In fact, the numbers are down. Like mass school shootings have been on the way down since the 1990s. Do you know there's 3 times less mass shootings at schools now than there were in the 1990s?
I've heard that they've gone down. I didn't know it was 3 times less.
3 times less.
So there's actually a lot of progress in that regard.
To that one
To
specific.
that one specific school shootings alone.
Right. Doesn't stop other mass shootings, but that specific one, yeah. So I find it interesting because when you look at this, you hear people saying all these things. Well, oh my God, I don't know. We've got to take away everyone's gun. Why? There's 160 million people who own firearms right now. Essentially, every other person you meet in America has a firearm, either on them or in their home. And you're not dead yet. What's the problem?
Absolutely. And you said roughly not more than 90% of these shootings are committed with shotgun and handgun. What are they going to propose? To ban those? Absolutely not. We have an absolute,
Yes, they will. Yes, they will.
Well, I agree with that. That's the worrisome part. Eventually, they're going to come out with something.
They've already said
along
it.
those lines.
Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens said he wants to remove, before he died, he said he wrote an article, an opinion piece, saying he wants to get rid of the Second Amendment. Kamala Harris and Kirsten Gillibrand have come out publicly during this election cycle and have said that they want to forcibly take away people's firearms from them. They want to use the full force of the government to take away the right and the property of American citizens. And I guarantee you, if someone is willing to use, and tell me if you think I'm wrong here, if the government is willing to use its full force to take away one piece of your property, and to deny you one right. Once they do that, and if that right happens to be your ability to defend yourself, what after that is going to stop them from taking away anything and everything else of yours?
Nothing at all. It's a slippery slope, and it just continues to progress. That's what they do that's what happens in Marxist governments, you know.
That's what happened in Venezuela.
So,
but
yeah,
and that's the thing that gets me, is because if I can't define, think about this, folks. This is where it's terrifying. If the government is going to use all of its power to take away your guns, and the only people who will have a firearm after that is the government and the police. And I listen to Antifa, Citizen Action, Representative Anthony Brindisi, Kamala Harris. I listen to these guys, and they're telling me the police are corrupt. The government is horrible. And yet, the only people that they want to have firearms are the police and the government. And the government, if they have their way, no one else in America will have a firearm. And who's going to protect you at that moment from what they call a corrupt, violent police force and government? Who's going to save your life at that point?
I mean, their positions are completely inconsistent, so the only ones that, according to them, should have firearms are the law enforcement officers. The same law enforcement system that they accuse seems every day of being, as you said, corrupt, racist, inefficient, racist, sex, whatever that comes up. It's completely inconsistent positions.
And I would love to see someone in the major news media, because I'm not major news media. I know that. I admit that. But here's a question that someone, 60 Minutes, MSNBC, CNBC, CNN, I'm giving you the right to use my stuff to ask this question. It's a very simple question. If the government will take away the only thing protecting me from the government, who protects me when the government decides to come after me after that? It's a simple question. I would love to hear Kamala Harris explain that she's going to do such a great job of protecting America that she will take away the only thing protecting Americans from the government, so that she can then have the government do whatever else it wants to. Who's protecting me from that? That is Venezuela. That is China. That is North Korea. That is Cuba. Let's go down the list of communist and socialist nations in the world, and you're going to get the same answers every single time. It seems pretty simple to me.
Oh, have some other answer, some unique answer. I'm curious to hear what it is.
I've yet to hear it. I've been told that usually, and I don't know what your experience is. My experience usually when I say this and I ask this of, Antifa, Citizen Action, Indivisible New York, basically the fringe left. When I ask them this, their answer almost every single time is, "You're a racist." Which, while that's kind of stupid and okay, it's a personal attack, you still didn't answer the question.
Exactly. It's an ad hominem attack. I mean, I need some kind of logical, rational thing.
Give me something more than, you're just a racist. I'm like, really? Really? I've had people do that all the time, especially on like Facebook and Twitter. They'll do it all the time. Well, you're just a white nationalist. I'm like, did you look at my picture? Did you, Facebook, look at my profile. Just take a quick look. I'm pretty sure the white nationalists would have a problem with me. Just maybe.
I really want to hear some kind of solid argument back, but we're still waiting on that one.
I've been waiting for years, and people like Representative Anthony Brindisi, well, he's hiding. For 3 years, I've been waiting for him to show up on this show to answer. I have dozens of questions for him. I've sent him dozens of questions. He won't answer me. So their thing is, well, you're a racist, so we don't have to talk to you. Which is,
it's a convenient excuse.
It's a great way to dodge the question because you're afraid, and to try and take away someone's character, even though Anthony Brindisi has answered my questions in the past when he wasn't running for Congress. And he's had interviews with me when he wasn't running for Congress. But now he's terrified of speaking to me. And I'm calling you out, Anthony. Anthony, you've known me 7 years. You know, and for 3 years, I've been asking you every time I see you to show up on this show. Come on in. And it's funny. Now the internet's acting up. The internet's acting up the moment I say Anthony Bernisi show up on this show. Did you see it? Did you see it turn yellow?
It seemed a little odd.
Yeah. As soon as I say Anthony, it's going dead. That's funny.
That is funny.
Yeah.
Huh.
We've been talking about everything else. No problem. That's been all green. The second I talk about a congressman and challenge them, all of a sudden the internet starts dropping off. Yeah, there's no algorithm from Facebook or from YouTube that's affecting that.
None at all.
Yeah. But anyway, so, okay, I've been talking a lot about the gun thing because it's really been pissing me off. But let me ask you, is there, you're here, and I hope people don't think I'm dominating it is a conversation between us.
We're having a great conversation so far.
But let me ask you, is there an issue, a thought, anything that you were thinking about that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, I can think of a million issues. We could talk about some of the local races going on, and definitely
please do.
What's going on in 2020. That's turning out to be an interesting, to quote, clown car, to quote Senator Cruz.
Well, which race are you speaking about specifically?
The presidential race.
Oh.
Presidential race.
Oh, you mean the
Although
well, we're down to 22 Democratic candidates? Because we lost 2, folks. In case you didn't notice, we were at 23, then we got de Blasio, then Eric Swalwell dropped out because who cares? And then, so that was 24, and then we have, and now we just lost Hickenlooper, and if you're saying who's that, doesn't matter. He's useless. And so they're gone. So now we're down to 22. But the big thing to take away from this is that's about 20 people too many. Because you, honestly, the average person in America, I think, knows 6 people out of all 24, and you could care less about the rest. And really, you shouldn't. You shouldn't care about anyone. I can make a case for 6 of them actually being on the stage, and everyone else is just useless, wasting space, gathering money for the DNC. That's my personal opinion.
No, they're just there to put their name out or just to get some time on the big screen. Honestly, this is the second, I believe, debate. We now have 2 separate debates. Mm-hmm. The Republicans also, except they structured it. They had, back in 2015,
well, you had your A group and your B group.
A group and a B group. Now they don't want to. They can't have a hierarchy, obviously, in the Democratic Party. God. They can't have a hierarchy. So
you're
now
ranking
they have 2
me.
Separate but equal debates, I guess. I don't
they're
know if that's the correct way
or equal.
I don't know. Yeah, exactly. They're neither separate nor equal. I don't know what they're trying to do there.
They're trying not to offend anyone. I don't want to offend you, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, our senator, because you've been at 0.3% for the last 9 months, and no one in America cares about what you have to say because they reject your gender identity politics. We can't possibly say that. We're Democrats. She has to be able to be on that stage as long as she has enough money.
Right.
As long as she raises enough money, she can be on that stage.
Oh, let's be truthful. No one outside our state really knows her. So
No, people in our state don't know her. They don't care.
Well,
she's a yes woman for the Democratic Party who's running on gender identity politics, and she can't even do that successfully. And I say that because if she did, she wouldn't be at 0.3%. Quite honestly, that's a failure. It's better than de Blasio, who's at 0, but I mean, that's not much of an accomplishment here. It's just not.
It's not. But they're just there for attention. And the mayor, de Blasio, has always he's going around. He's supposed to be taking care of the city. But he has a tendency to, he jets off to Germany or wherever else and gives his opinion on various world events. I mean, if he wants to do that, he can run for Congress, I suppose.
He can go and open up a newspaper or get be the co-host for Chris Cuomo. There you go. That's what he's trying to do. If he wants to do commentary, Chris Cuomo needs some help.
But onto the
Yes.
So let's say more serious candidates that we have coming up next year, and I think we have another round of debates
Wait a
coming
minute,
up.
we have serious candidates on the Democratic side?
Serious. Let's say someone will definitely get the nomination, and one of those
Yeah.
candidates will be selected as the VP. They're not going to get an outsider. I believe one of those candidates is.
Yeah.
So
I
we're
think
looking
so.
at their picks for president and VP.
Who do you think it is?
Personally, it's too early to tell, really.
No, I know. I figured out who it would be back in October of 2018.
I figure they could try to run a Biden and Kamala Harris ticket to try to balance things out, but
Think so?
I don't think that's happening after the debates. No.
Yeah,
But,
because I don't think they like each other very much.
Absolutely.
And I know their politics don't match up.
No, they don't match up either. It would have been, they could have, that's not going to work out. Maybe if they actually thought it through, they can try to unite their base if they do that. But
If they thought it through, they wouldn't be Democrats.
Now we've come to
Personal thought. Personal thought. But okay, no, looking at it politically.
Right.
Let's think of it politically. They are all, none of them are aligned. They're kind of all running parallel to each other. Mayor Pete is the gay guy. And so he's all LGBTQ, which is kind of like Kamala Harris and her gender politics, which is kind of like Kirsten Gillibrand's gender politics, which is kind of like Cory Booker's race issues. But those are all things running parallel to each other. They don't actually intersect.
And then do they talk about other ideas? I mean, spending, of course.
Andrew Yang wants to spend money like no one has ever spent money before, because he and my favorite, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, have no concept what money is.
Yeah, this is
He's the rich. He calls himself the rich Asian who can do math. I'm sorry, I know many Asians who can do math as well as everybody else, and no one does math as badly as Andrew Yang and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
ironic, right? But he claims to be able to do really good math. The funny thing is, I have to say, I think he's correct with there's automation. Let's just say he's using what is a legitimate issue. The impact of automation on existing jobs, and we've seen that the last 10,
There's
15
a transition.
years. Yes,
Yeah.
there's some kind of technological transition. We're looking at AI, its impact on healthcare, on
A bunch of things.
metadata, everything. Yes, and we're going to have more and more effect on that. And how is
Fair
it going
enough.
to displace jobs?
Yes.
And so he comes in with there's a very legitimate issue, and then he has his solution that has no.
And his
connection
solution
with
is let's
reality.
bankrupt the
Right.
entire country and throw it all into the sewer.
Yes.
Let's become a banana republic. That is Andrew Yang's, my analysis of Andrew Yang's policy. Even if you take him going by Andrew Yang's own words, that not everyone will get $1,000. So first of all, he's lying to people because he's mismarketing this, because it's not everyone gets $1,000. It's some people will get $1,000. And if you're thinking, well, that means poor people, no, that doesn't mean poor people either. According to Andrew Yang, you would get $1,000 minus whatever the government is already giving you. So you won't get $1,000 a year. But even if we take that all into account, I come up with, and I've seen other reports that are similar, somewhere around $1.5 to $1.7 trillion in new money that doesn't exist.
Absolutely.
So much for economics. Again, bankrupting the country, banana republic time.
He claims he can raise this money through VAT taxes.
Do taxes on what?
That's not on.
Wait a minute. That's like you're adding another approximately another 50% in taxes
It's just
on every man, woman, and child in America.
Exactly.
Especially on the poor people who can't afford it in the first place.
Yes. Exactly. This is just it's just a huge restriction on the entire supply chain process. That's not going to go through. I mean, that's just another idea out of thin air.
It's another stupid idea. This is why Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez loves it, because it's stupid. It sounds like, ooh, I'm there for poor people. No, you're going to screw poor people, Andrew Yang. You're going to screw them hard. And you're not going to tell them about it before you do it. That's what he's doing.
There's another issue with that. In Finland, they did a test pilot program for UBI. This was like 2 or 3 years ago.
And it failed.
Yes, correct. It failed. What they found out was people are not motivated. Now that I have money for, let's say, gas,
Less
to pay
people
my
work.
rent, bill. Exactly. They're not more motivated to go find a job or whatever. They may even be less motivated since now they have everything taken care of. They'll just sit at home, and in fact encourages people to simply sit at home and not contribute, not find a new job or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good thing because we don't have any millennials that are sitting at home of their parents' house and just living off of that. Not that they're all bad people, but like, is not the culture already trending there?
It's actually the opposite. It's a disincentive.
Yeah.
I think we can safely say UBI is actually a disincentive for people to go out and work.
I think
Potentially. I'll need to do a little more research, but hopefully they do more test pilots.
no,
It's just
they're not going to. Yeah, the new test pilot is America.
Certainly not. Certainly not.
Look at the Democrats. They love this idea. Do you know that Kamala Harris came up, she was the first one to suggest it back in December of 2018. I believe it was the second week of December, maybe December 12th. That may not be exactly correct, but it was December of 2018. Kamala Harris in New Hampshire, before she announced, while she was out on the campaign trail, suggested that we should pay poor people $650 a month because they're poor. So she wanted to pay people to be poor. And she thought that would be a wonderful idea. And now Andrew's saying, no, I can do better than that. Let's give him $1,000.
Oh, this is before he came out with UBI?
Yeah, before he came out with the UBI, Senator Kamala Harris said it in New Hampshire, December of 2018. I believe it was the second week of December. I forget the exact day. But yeah, she came out and said that. I remember it very clearly. I remember the articles talking about it, and this was her brilliant idea. Not that she had any idea of how to pay for it, and had no idea what would happen to all the poor people who would suddenly have to pay more in taxes and have all the costs of everything they wanted go up, which would hurt them. Yeah, because this is why I say there is no viable Democrat right now. They have all these wonderful, it's free, we're going to take care of you, you're going to be safe and you're going to be wealthy, and that's great because government loves you. That's what they're saying to everybody, and not even thinking for even half a second about, and then what happens when government doesn't love you? You're not rich, you're not more free, and you're not able to do any of the things that they promised.
Or step B is when they just completely bankrupt the government, and then what?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Then you don't even have programs to keep people happy, or nothing works.
Like Greece.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a precedent for this? Yeah, it's called
there's
Greece.
More than one. But
Riots
Greece
in the
is-
street. Riots in the street, burning down things because people are like, I want my money. And the government says, there is no money.
Yep. Oh, so they're going to take on another couple loans, print more money. What's the solution there? I mean,
Well, no one knows. I don't think anyone thinks Greece is a economic powerhouse of the world. And that's not to say that Greek people aren't good people. We're talking about governments here. And, so if we want to say that, well, and many of the Democrats, the fringe left, don't like America. Mary Rapinoe, this kid, Race Imboden, the fencer, the Gwen Berry, the hammer throw at Pan American Games, Colin Kaepernick. These are all people, they don't like America.
that's unfortunate. I mean,
Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, yes, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They don't like America.
that's insane. I mean, when you live in a country that gives you so many opportunities and gives you, the freedom to just say what you feel for the most part. And, when you don't appreciate that, I mean, have these people been, I don't know if they've been to other countries, if they go and
Ilhan Omar was in different countries, so was Rashida Tlaib. Yeah, they've been there.
but as a citizen living there.
Yeah. Those two have. I can't speak to Gwen Berry or the others. I know they've visited other countries, but they haven't actually lived. I've lived in another country. I spent a year and a half over in Moscow. I understand very clearly where socialism leads. I saw the abject poverty and depression of everybody in that nation because of those policies. I would not wish that on anyone. But they seem to think that's the most perfect plan, even though it has not worked anywhere in the world ever.
And it's been tried a couple dozen times at least.
Like every 20 years, some nation goes, yeah, we can do this right because it's going to get us all free stuff. We're going to try it. And they do. And it fails.
And it fails.
Every single time.
But
I can't think of one. Can you point out one success story for communism or socialism in the world since the 1900s?
Hold on. Let me think. So let's say for the last 100 years, a success story where socialism or Marxism has succeeded. Whew, I'm coming up short here.
No, I can give you an answer. There is an answer. There is a success.
Okay. There may be one or a couple.
There's one, maybe
We're not
two.
talking about some kind of society where it was free market capitalist and they just put a couple social programs.
No.
So full blown.
Not social programs. Really, really nice social programs,
Okay.
which would be Finland, Sweden.
Right, but those are free market economies.
Those are
really.
free countries,
Correct.
right? Those are free markets, but which
They're
are
also,
paying for.
They're
it.
also very small countries. I will say they have a population of 5 million each, so it's difficult to compare.
They're smaller
that
than New
to-
York City.
Correct.
Yeah.
We have 330 million people, so it's an entirely different ballpark. that
Yeah,
we're
scale of
talking
economies changes everything. But
Right.
no, I'm not talking about them.
about. Okay.
The two questionable successes of socialism and communism in the last 100 years is the Soviet and Chinese army. They are super powerful. They are huge, mostly because they need that to keep people under their thumb, to oppress the people, because if you don't oppress the people, they go into riots instantly, which we saw. Look at the Soviet Union right after Gorbachev left. They got rid of they started breaking down the Soviet Union, and instantly you were seeing Moldavia break into 3 smaller countries, and they were all fighting each other. So without the oppressive weight and thumb of the military and the government oppressing people, which communism and socialism are exceptionally good at, oppressing people, once you take that away, all hell breaks loose. So if there's anything that you can say that's very successful in a socialist or communist country in the last 100 years, it's the ability to oppress the public through the government, the sheer might of the government. That they've been very successful at.
Right, but we're not talking about the success of the country.
I said a success.
That's success. So we're talking about the institution of the military, which is a state institution, pretty much.
They were real good with that. But other than that, other than oppressing their people, I can't think of anything else that they've ever done that was successful.
But it's not a success. The people are starving, and they're.
I didn't say it was positive. Success doesn't necessarily mean positive, which is another one of the little word games a lot of politicians like to use. Oh, successful. That means it's positive. No, it doesn't. No.
It was.
Success does not mean positive.
Their militaries were successful, absolutely, and you could say efficient to a degree. Otherwise, it wouldn't have worked.
A degree, yeah. I don't recommend it for anybody. I'm definitely
Certainly
not a
not.
fan, and I'm not going to say, go on out there, folks, go for it. No, because I know better. I've seen it in action. I've seen bread lines. I told you about going to McDonald's. The only McDonald's in a country with 8-hour, and I've seen even longer, 12-hour lines to get into McDonald's, folks. McDonald's. You know, that store, that fast food joint that's right down the block from everybody who's watching this right now. Yeah, 12-hour lines to get in there to get a Big Mac. And it's going to cost you more money than your car payment per month to get it. That's what I saw. That's socialism. That is the success of socialism on a personal level, on an economic level. And this is what, AOC, Tlaib, Omar, Gillibrand, Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders, this is what they want to give America. That's the kind of future and success they want to give everyone, so that you can get some free money for $1,000, which will at that point buy you
maybe a loaf of bread.
You'll get a hamburger
by the time it kicks in. I mean, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually, with the amount of debt we already have, honestly, if you look at it, and with they'll have to print money like crazy in order to fund those programs. Let's say hypothetically. So the only end result of that is hyperinflation. There is no other end result.
Yeah. If you're printing, which is actually printing money was the answer by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez when she was asked on how would she pay for the Green New Deal, which costs no less than $4 trillion. And her answer was, we'll print money.
This is $4 trillion, if I may interrupt, $4 trillion per year?
Per year.
$4
trillion per year for 4 years, literally doubling the amount of money that the United States government would spend every year by itself. That's just one proposal. And Andrew Yang, for his $1,000, is saying, essentially, let's double it again. So their answer is, well, we'll just print money. The country would be somewhere around $9 trillion in debt. And they're just going to print money.
Oh, we're already $21 trillion in debt.
No, I'm talking about every year.
But every year.
You're looking at almost every other year adding another roughly $10 trillion in debt every other year.
That'll pretty much last one presidential term maximum.
By the end of that presidential term, we would have somewhere around 20, 30, 40, 50, somewhere around $50 trillion in debt. If you just did Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Andrew Yang and ran everything else exactly the same in the country, you'd be looking at, after 4 years, roughly $50 trillion in debt for the nation, not including interest rates.
Not including the interest rates.
Which would put you closer to $65 trillion minimum in 4 years. Yeah, we're talking bankrupt. That's what they're offering. And they're offering that just like the Cuomo is now offering and suggesting that the Congress, and they're going to watch, Democrats in Congress are going to go for this. They're going to go out there and say, don't worry, it's just one more law and you're going to be safe. You're going to be okay because we're the government and we're smart and we're going to take care of you. Yeah. Just give us everything. Give us your freedom, give us your rights, just give us everything and you'll be safe because, the government knows best.
Don't forget your property too.
Yeah. I said everything.
Everything.
Yeah. And you've known a bunch of politicians. Let me ask you something, because I've said this before. Politicians, they're just as stupid as they are the day before they get elected as the day after they get elected. And an election does not make someone's IQ instantly go higher.
I don't think anything in life does, really.
That's for sure. So therefore, if someone was an idiot beforehand, AOC, Anthony Brindisi, and others, the intelligence quotient is not going to get better just because they get elected. It just means they were really good at marketing. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. Not everyone agrees with it. Some people say, Mike, you have no idea. I don't know. But we got about 5 minutes.
I would say, though, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room, but at least you could acknowledge some of your shortcomings or mistakes, and try to find people who are smarter than you or maybe more experienced and try to get them to make.
Okay, what politician besides Ross Perot has ever suggested that? And I got to give credit to Ross Perot because he did suggest that, but who else?
It's a short list. I'm just saying it's it's out there. You could kind of stand up and do that. But I think a few of them would kind of temper the ego a little bit to say that.
Oh, of course.
Is it back?
We
it's
dropped
back,
for a
it's
second.
back. Oh, we dropped again.
Yeah, it does that every so often. Well, literally on certain key terms, suddenly it just drops.
Right.
And then comes back.
Certain sitting congressmen.
I guarantee you it's key to certain key words because I watch it every time I don't know, I've done 800 of these videos and I just watch that videos just as I'm doing it. It's like boom, certain keywords, suddenly I am dropped off and I can't speak. And then as soon as I stop talking about that, boom, internet's back normal. I know. But do you have anything that's going on in the community or anything that you want to mention or just promote for a second?
Not right now. Soon, maybe in a couple months. Definitely, I'll keep it in mind.
Okay.
Nothing particularly big or large right now. There are a lot of events in the community, but I'm not going. They're nothing to do with me or. So I'm sure there's plenty of events going on, definitely.
Okay.
I'm just not going to endorse any of them really
okay.
right now.
No, you don't have to, but I figured I'd give you the opportunity. But how'd you like it? Did you have fun today?
Oh yeah, it was great.
Okay.
It was great. I think, it was, hopefully we'll have as much fun next time, maybe a little more.
Oh, I would hope so. But I know people always worry and think that, I'm mean. I do such a horrible job. That's why I call myself the dragon. They always think I'm the dragon. I'm going to beat up on them. It's like, no, it's a conversation.
It's good to have a conversation. Sometimes it's good to spit a little fire as well, get the ball rolling, get some hard questions. Certainly would be.
And people disagree with me.
Eventually.
Anyone who saw my interview with Larry Sharp yesterday knows that not everyone agrees with me. And it's like we walk away friends. We're fine. Larry Sharp and he's a libertarian. We disagreed on a couple of issues and we're still fine. We're still talking. We're still going to wind up at several events and doing more interviews and we're still good people because the world doesn't end just because we disagree.
I think it's impossible to find someone that you agree with 95% on issues. You can find people that you agree with on 80%,
If I agree with anyone
exactly.
95%, then someone's
I would
lying.
be a little worried, exactly.
Someone's lying.
Exactly. Definitely something.
Yeah. Either they're
There's
lying
an
or I'm
omission,
lying, but
someone's lying or omitting something.
yeah, because that ain't happening. That's the reality of the world. If someone agrees with you that much, they're trying to sell you something. They're lying. That is my absolute belief. But with those words of wisdom, folks, we're going to end the show here. Thank you for checking it out. Hopefully you thought it was kind of interesting and different. If you have thoughts about the Second Amendment, about the hate crimes, it's a tough one there. I'm still not used to it yet.
Hate Crimes Domestic Terrorism Act?
Yeah, the Hate Crimes Domestic Terrorism Act. If you have comments about the red flag legislation, about the 2020 election, please put them into the comments here on YouTube and let us know, and we'll always be willing to talk with you about it and hear your thoughts. So until then, please be well, enjoy the weekend, and we'll be talking again really soon. Thanks, folks.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone have a great day. Enjoy the weekend. Hopefully we still have some good weather. That's about it.
All right. Well, there you go, folks. All right. Bye-bye.